Hello and welcome back to Web Design for Small Business. In this video, part 27, Admin Page, we're going to be taking a short break from completing our menu page and working on our administration page. The reason for it, simply put, for the next part of the menu, we need to do the modal pop-ups for each of the items. And for that, I need an image and description of each item, and I don't have those yet. The other thing that I'm going to need is to go in and do all the definitions for all the different languages for each individual item, and that work is quite extensive, and I've started it, but I haven't finished it yet, so I need more time offline to finish that. We'll probably have a break after this video for another day. I know I've missed a couple days so far, posting one video a day, and that was simply due to some of the sizes of the videos were quite extensive, and even videos that are over 2 hours in length were probably double that to start, and I had to cut them down. So if you are ever watching the video and it seems like it skips a little bit, it's probably because it does quite a bit. Cutting out some of the non-essential stuff, or if I get stuck on something and have to go through and try a bunch of different things, I'll usually just skip ahead to the version that works and cut out all the ones that didn't, because that's just a waste of time. Alright. So anyway, going on to our admin page. The first thing we need to do is log in so we can see our admin page. Okay, so we log in and we see our admin page. So what we want to have in here is a few things. First, we want to have any switches that we need. So if we go back to our location page, if you remember, we put in a manual switch to have this set to open or closed. So we need some place where we can trigger that. So we'll do that within our admin section. The other thing we're going to do is be able to edit every single one of our menu items. And you could have it where you can edit your address and phone number and email address if you plan on changing that regularly, or even your hours of operation. If you don't plan on changing that, because most businesses really don't plan on moving or changing static contact information or even the hours of operation, so if that's going to stay constant, you don't have to worry about adding stuff. I'm not going to, because I'm pretty sure none of this is going to change regularly. There is, however, one other thing we're going to add, and that's for each of these pages, we're going to put, especially the location and homepage, we're going to add an information pop-up. So very similar to our error message and confirmation messages that pop up in this section here, we're going to have one that pops up under the panel heading of each of our pages as just an informational thing. So for example, for right now on our home page, we want to have one stating the changes that are in effect due to COVID, such as restrictions on how many people can dine in the restaurant at a given time, and if it affects the hours of operation. Within the location, same thing. So if you need to close for an extended period of time, instead of just having this say closed with that manual button, you can actually tell people we're going to be closed or open from these days to these days. Works great for holidays and stuff like that. So just having those, and then having where you can set what they say within the admin page. And basically if they're blank, then it doesn't show up at all. So we're going to do that for each of those. And yeah, so we'll get started on the admin page. We'll also have a section that can process the orders, but we'll do that in a separate video. Okay, so to get started, we need to actually go back to our database, and we have customers, menu, orders. We need to create a new table that has switches. So basically, if you think of it this way, when we have our location, we want that open closed, where we have PHP values that are either 1 or 0, a Boolean value for open or closed, and it checks for that. We need to be able to set those. However, we need them to be static, so basically every time anybody goes to the page, it needs to know whether that's open or closed. So the only way we can get that kind of long-term persistence is through our database. So we need to have some kind of database value for that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new table called switches. And it only needs to have one value. Sorry, 2 columns. And I say that, now I know we need a third, but you can add or subtract. Well, you can add here. You don't actually subtract anything. If you want to remove a column, you simply leave it blank, not giving it a name or a value, and it won't be included. Make sure the storage engine is set to InnoDB and the collation is set to UTF-8. And that underscore bin for binary, there are other languages, but we always want to use the binary one. Okay, so the first column is just going to be the ID, and that is going to be a serial. We don't need to do anything else for that one. The second one is going to be the name of the switch, and that's going to be a tiny text. And again, you don't need to fill in anything else for that. And the last one is going to be the value. And that could be a tiny int. And we could just set this to 1, which I'm going to do, which just limits it to 1 character, which is essentially a Boolean. And save that. Okay, so now we have our switches database. So now going back to our NetBeans and pulling up our admin page and our location page. Okay, so the only thing we need from our location page is to verify what these variables were called. So manual open and manual closed. So in our admin page now, we can delete that. So I'm going to give this one a H3 header tag. And in here I'm going to have location settings. If class equals manual hyphen open close. Close the div. Okay, and then in that div we're going to create 2 buttons. One called open. One called closed. class is equal to btn, btn-lg, and btn-success. Closed is going to have a class equal to btn, btn-lg, btn-danger. And just save that and see what it looks like. Open and closed. And I'm going to give each of these another class of btn-admin. So that way we can set some specific requirements for our administration buttons within our CSS. And I'm actually going to pop each of these buttons onto a new line. And I'm going to give this div a description. So that's going to be a span. Class is equal to h4 span manually set open closed. And I'm going to give that a colon and $sign EMSP. Refresh. So if you notice, instead of doing a normal NBSP for non-breaking space, I did an EMSP. It's the same thing, it's just wider. So EM space, it's almost like having a tab. So it just creates a larger space than what a non-breaking space would do. If I wanted to add one in front of this, I could do that as well. And that tabs it out from there so that it just kind of flows a little bit better. Okay, so now we're going to add the CSS for our btn admin. .btn admin. And in here, I'm going to go border. Two pixels, solid, and pound 124500. When I said 12, I actually meant 00. I was just counting the number of zeros. Okay, so save that and refresh. And now our buttons should have those borders, except when we hover over, that border will change to either green or red, respectively. I also want to change the color and boldness of the font weight of the text. So font weight is going to be bolder, not just bold, but bolder. And I guess color Now I'm also going to add a third button there. So admin, so open, closed, and then I'm going to add a third button. I'm just going to copy and paste my open one. And I'm going to change this one to default. And instead of success, this is going to be info. That blue is very bright. I change it to warning. That gives a yellow, and I kind of like that better. So that's what I'm going to go with. And then after these buttons, I'm going to have another span that will say which state it's currently in. So after my buttons, span, inside this span, we need an ID is equal to, I'm going to call it MOC for manually open or close, or actually MSOC, manually set open close. And I'm going to change this one up here to that same thing, MSOC. You can't, that's a class, and this is an ID. So that is fine. So this ID in here, we are going to have default. Refresh. Okay. So in here, we're going to put H4 space MSOC. Oh, that's an ID, sorry. Class equals H4. And I'm going to put the class before the ID. Like that. Okay, so that gives us a larger font, which is the same font size for everything else on that line. And CSS. Pound and sock. Color pound 700. Font weight bolder. Style italic, and font size and then to get this to align to the middle, we go vertical align middle. Save, refresh, and there. Now it's in the middle, and I'm going to give it another spacing in here, like with that. So going back to our admin page, and I'm just going to put it in front of the span. Okay, so in the end, this is what it looks like. So we have our location settings, manually set open, close, default, and default. Okay, so what I did to get all this are location settings within H3, div class equals msoc. There's actually nothing in that class. I probably don't need it, but that's okay. H4, or sorry, a span with a class of H4. Now, the class of H4 doesn't mean that it gives it all the properties of our H4 element that we set. With Bootstrap, Bootstrap automatically creates classes that match the heading settings. So this is what the original Bootstrap H4 would be without our modifications. So don't think that that's the same thing, because it's not. But what it does do is it makes our text bigger. So we enclose that with EM spaces, which are just larger spaces than the non-breaking space, and manually set open close. Then we have buttons for open, close, default, and they are colored success, danger, and warning, and we added a btn-admin, which is our own custom setting. The rest, the btn, btn large, and btn success, danger, or warning are all Bootstrap predefined classes. Then on another line, a span. Inside that span, we have two EM spaces, and in between those spaces, an I, and in that I, class FAS space FA-4x space FA-caret-right space green. If you remember, we did predefined colors. So we did green as one of them for our normal green, and then mid, and this is a new one that I created. And then the last line is span ID msoc, which is set to default. And then what we're going to do is use JavaScript and Ajax to actually make this do something. So, going back to our database, we now need to go from structure within our switches, and we need to go to browse. And we're going to hit insert because we have nothing in there. And the name will be open, value of 0, and we'll go down to the second one here, and we'll call this one closed, and a value of 0. And then hit the go under the closed one. And that will add both of those values. So now when we go to browse, we will see that we have both open and closed, and both are set to a value of 0. Okay. So now going back to our NetBeans, we're going to create a new account under resources. PHP file, and this one is going to be called admin-functions. And the first thing we need to do is check to see if the person is an admin. So in order for us to do that, we need to first include our core I'm going to copy my little commented out error check to. Okay, so we include our core. Now what we need to do is check to see if our user is an admin, and if not, kick them out. So if C staff if exclamation mark $C square brackets, inside the square brackets single quotes, inside the single quotes staff, curly bracers. Okay, inside the curly bracers we go header double quotes location colon https colon double slash highway45.ca. So just leave that as that, save that. Okay, and now we can actually get down to business. So what we want is we need to do a get, and we want to create a variable called check. Filter input get or input post comma check comma filter callback, which should not be in single quotes. Don't know why I put that there. Filter callback, double quotes, sorry, long day. Filter callback, comma, square brackets, inside the square brackets, double quotes, inside the double quotes, options, outside the double quotes, equals to, greater than, another set of double quotes, inside those double quotes, data secure. And we call our data secure function to filter that. And what we'll put in this variable is what we're actually checking, so that way this can work for all of our admin functions and we don't have to create a new page for each one. So then we create a switch for our check. Okay, so inside our curly bracers, we want to go case open colon enter set db1 is equal to double quotes semicolon. In here, update switches set val is equal to 1 where name is equal to open in single quotes set db2 is equal to update switches set val is equal to 0 where name is equal to closed semicolon. If parentheses, curly bracers, inside the parentheses, MySQLi underscore query, curly bracers, triple equals, false, double bars, MySQLi underscore query, parentheses, triple equals, false. Inside the first set of parentheses for the MySQL query, $, our database name, comma, set db1, and inside the second set of MySQL query parentheses, database, Highway 45 db, comma, set db2. Inside our curly bracers, exit, enter, else, curly bracers, echo, single quotes, open, all caps, semicolon, exit, semicolon. Save that. And go back to our admin page. Now, these buttons don't have IDs, so we need to give them IDs. ID is equal to open. ID is equal to closed. Sorry, I'm just going to call it close. And ID is equal to OC-default. Okay, now above our page content, we need to create some JavaScript for this. So giving ourselves a couple lines, JS dot equals to double set of single quotes and semicolon. Inside here, $, parentheses. Inside the parentheses, double quotes. Inside the double quotes, hashtag open. Outside the parentheses, dot click, parentheses, semicolon. Inside the parentheses, function, parentheses, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers, $, dot post, parentheses, semicolon. Inside the parentheses, double quotes. Inside the double quotes, https:// highway45.ca/resources/admin-functions.php. After the double quote, comma, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers is check is equal to double quotes. Inside the double quotes, open. Outside the curly bracers, comma, function, parentheses. Inside the parentheses, data. Outside the parentheses, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers, $, parentheses. Inside the parentheses, double quotes. Inside the double quotes, pound MSOC. Outside the parentheses, .html, parentheses, semicolon. Inside the parentheses, data. Save that. Sorry, there was an error. This equals is supposed to be a colon. Save that. error goes away. Click the open, and boom, it says open now. And if we go to our database and we hit browse to refresh that, this now has a value of 1. Perfect. So now what we do is go back to our NetBeans. Okay, so we're going to do this in our core page, so highway45.php in our case. And we are going to go down to after our languages, but before our message handling. We're going to go in here, and we're going to go get admin switches, and get s is equal to MySQLi underscore query, parentheses, semicolon, our database, comma, double quotes, select all from switches. $SN is equal to 0, space, while SN is less than MySQL num underscore rows. Inside the parenthesis, get s. Outside that, curly bracers. And SN plus plus semicolon. S is equal to MySQLi underscore fetch underscore assoc parentheses semicolon, inside the parentheses get s. Space. Change the S to switch. After that, S, square brackets, inside the square brackets, switch, square brackets again, single quotes, name, set to switch, square brackets, inside the square brackets, val. So basically what we're doing here is before SN is equal to 0, we need to do a S is equal to array. There we go. So we're creating an empty array called S and setting SN to 0. So while our SN or switch number is less than the number of rows we have in our switches, it will cycle through. We increment our SN so that it doesn't get an infinite loop because it never goes up. Then we get our row, call it switch. Inside each row, we basically have an ID number, which is useless, a name, and a value. So what we're doing is we are creating a new array, so our S, where the switch name is equal to the switch value. And then exiting it out and doing that for each row. So instead of having basically values where our switches have a name and a value, we just literally have S and then so all of our switches, and then we select the switch name and it's equal to the value. Instead of having the name and value as separate values, they are key and value. Okay, and that's something we can work with. So that's all we need to do there. Save that, and now we go to our location, and manual open is basically now S square brackets open, because the value will either be 1 or 0. Manual close is now S close. And save that. So now what we need to do is go back to our admin functions, and we need to create cases for closed and default. So I'm going to copy that. Oh, and sorry, before I do that, after this, we need a break. Okay. So copying that, paste for close, paste for default. And all we do here is we change these values around. And then we echo closed. And then for this one, instead of open, it is OC-default. And the value for both of them are going to be 0 now. And we're going to echo default with a capital D, everything else lowercase. And save that. Now we're going back to our admin page, and we need to create JavaScript for each of those as well. So copy, paste twice. First one from open to close. Check close. OC-default. And OC-default. Save that. And I'm actually, because I forgot to do it before, going and adding my line breaks. Which again, before the semicolon, adding a dot, double quotes, \n for new line, and it has to be in double quotes to execute. If it's in single quotes, it assumes it's a string and it will just write \n instead of creating a new line out of it. Okay, so going back to our restaurant now, refresh that. Okay, so now the first thing I notice is this went back to default. So what we need to do there is get this to read and detect which one is selected. So between our JavaScripts and our page content, I'm going to create some more PHP code. So this page, because it's our admin page within our regular, gets the switches the same as the location does. So we don't need to create our S variable, we already have it. So if S So if S square brackets inside the square brackets open, I'm going to call this OCS now as a PHP variable. sopen, then OCS is set to open. Else if, parentheses, S closed, curly bracers, OCS is equal to closed. I mean, for consistency, I really should be calling everything either closed or close. I'm kind of using both. That might get confusing, but it's what I did. Else, so if it's not open or closed, then it is default. And save that. And that will set that dynamically. So when I refresh this now, it will be open. So if I set it back to default, open or closed, it will do whatever I tell it to. And not only is it setting it there, but if we go here and browse, it is also setting it here. So now open is set to 0 and closed is set to 1. And if I go from our administration page to our location page, you can see that now, even though the time is 5:23 and it is currently Saturday, so it should be open right now, it's saying that it is closed because of that manual close. We go back to our admin page and we hit open. We go back to our location page and it is open. If we go back to our admin page and hit default, it is still open because it's supposed to be open. So you can manually set it to open or close just by hitting the buttons. It tells you what it's currently set to, and default will always be that default. Now we could put default as the first one. That might make more sense. So I will just rearrange that. Changing the order of the buttons doesn't affect the functionality whatsoever. So default open or closed. And it's currently set to default. Alright, so that is the first button in our administration page and finalizes our location page, which is nice. Okay, except we also want to do that message setting, so we'll do that next. First, we need to create where that will be. So we go to our location page, under the heading, in the body, we have a row, call small, call small, call small. So, okay. So underneath our panel body, above our div class row, we're going to create a new line, and in there we're creating a new div. And this div will have a class equal to alert, alert warning, alert dismissible, dismissible, and alert -admin. Now, all of these are Bootstrap default classes except the alert admin. That is our custom one. I always put the custom one last, so that way any changes we make will override any of the previous settings, so that we have more control. Inside this div, we are going to create a span that has an ID is equal to admin-msg another span that has a class. And the class is equal to close space. Sorry. Class is closed. After the class space data hyphen dismiss equals double quotes alert. And in here, I, and in the I class is equal to fas fa.lg fa.fw and fa-times. Save that. And inside the span ID admin message, we're going to put test and save that. And now we're going back to our location page, and we should have this class here. And our close button is a little low. Okay, so all we're going to do is go span class, change from close to close hyphen am for admin message, and then we're going to create a custom CSS class for that. This mid, if you didn't create it, if I forgot to mention that, it's .mid and it's just set to vertical hyphen align middle, and I'm going to cut that, and I'm actually going to move that up with the rest of our generic ones up there under center and before page content. Scrolling back down to the bottom, dot close hyphen am, and this is just going to be a float right. Font size 22 pixels. Font weight bold. Cursor pointer. Save that. Refresh. Okay, and then what we're going to do is our alert admin. And padding is going to be 1 BW. And our alert admin will have padding set to 0.5 BW. And a font size of 20 pixels. And a color hashtag there of green. Refresh, And then because we're changing the color to green, that will actually affect this too, and we don't want that one to have those colors. So before the cursor, I'm just going to add a color pound 700. Save that. Refresh. That's better, but there's no hover color change, so I'm going to add that. So new line after .close am and .close -am :hover, and we're just changing the color to our green. Save that, refresh. And when we click on that X, it closes our message and gets rid of it. So if people want to get rid of it, they don't need to see that. It will, but as soon as you refresh the page, it pops back again. So it will be there until you remove it. Okay, so now going back to our location page, we can delete test from there, and we can copy that, and we're going to paste this into each of our other pages now, except for the admin one. So our menu page, so again, we have our restaurant menu, and we want to put that on the same level as that and above it. So just under the, basically we're always looking for this div class panel body, and we're going to paste it right underneath that. Save that. Their location, so our home page now. Paste that. We can close our home page again. And we'll have it in our order page, but we haven't started our order page yet. So we'll just add that there anyway. So it's there when we start. Close that one. Okay, so now we have those alerts on each of our pages. Problem is, now they're showing up like this on each of our pages, and we don't want that. So what we want to do is create JavaScript on our core page that hides anything with this alert admin. So in our scripts here where we have our flags, we're going to put it above that. So JS dot equals to single quotes, semicolon, inside the single quotes, $, parenthesis, double quotes inside the parenthesis, hashtag inside the double quotes, and this is, sorry, not a hashtag, a dot, because it's a class, alert-admin, and dot hide. And then dot, double quotes, backslash n after that. I have a W in there. Delete the W. Ignore my typos. So now when we hit refresh, that's gone. And it will be gone from every page. And we want it hidden by default, so we leave that. And then what we do is we set in here a value to show them. So we will put that above our location settings because it's not going to be unique to, actually we'll have it within each one. So now we go back to each of these pages and we have to create an ID for these alert classes. So ID is equal to, and we're going to call it AA for alert admin, hyphen, and then the name of the page. So this is AA location. For our location page, go back to our home page. ID is equal to AA-home. Save that, close that. Order ID is equal to A order. Save and menu. ID is equal to A-menu. Now, I didn't put those on our registration or profile pages because I didn't see a need for them. If you want to put them there, you most certainly can, but I don't see a point in creating extra work that you don't need. And if I can't foresee a use for it, I'm not going to add it because that's just creating extra work. Although I say that, I have created a lot more work into this site than I normally would put into a site like this for the purpose of the tutorial, such as the languages. There was no need to do this site in multiple languages. If I did it in any languages other than English, I probably would have just stuck with the Chinese because the owners speak Chinese primarily. They speak Cantonese, so for them reading traditional Chinese might be a lot easier than reading English. But I don't know. All their menus are in English, so it's hard to say. Anyway, yeah, moving on. So going back to our admin page, we have our location, so now we need to set what that would be. So we want one of our form fields that we've already done, because wherever possible, don't retype stuff if you can just copy and paste it. So I'm just going to open up our register page and find our username field, and I'm just going to copy that. Now we don't need the form part of it, we literally just need that form group div. So I'm going to copy that, go back to our location, sorry, not location, our admin page, and still under location settings, but I'm going to go under this div class MSOC, paste it in there. Now, paste is a little funky, so I'm going to just fix this to line up. And apparently I deleted that. Okay. Okay, so there we go. But I don't want it to be called username, so I'm going to delete that. Delete that. Placeholder. I'm just going to delete the placeholder altogether. And instead of input type is equal to text, this is actually going to be a text area. So we haven't gone over text area, but text area is basically, instead of a one-line text field, it is a text box. So if you ever see those large boxes where you can write paragraphs and stuff, that is called a text area. Unlike an input and more like a select field, it has both the beginning and end tags. So we need to create an end tag. And then any text that you would want default on there would be between the two tags. This also doesn't need a name because we're not submitting it as a form. So it just needs the ID. And the ID for this one is going to be AA hyphen location hyphen text. I don't want it to be AA hyphen location because I used that ID on the location page, and I don't want to be crossing, even though you would never be on the admin page and the location page at the same time, so it technically would be safe to reuse that ID. I'm still not going to. Okay, now the hidden input we do not need, so I'm going to delete that. And the label for it is going to be, I should keep the constant, but I will redo constants after I get it set up the way I like it. Then I go back in and remove all the words with constants, but I'll do that in one stretch once I'm done, because it saves going back and forth as much. Okay, so for now this one is going to be called location text. Location alert text. I'll call it all alert text. And this, so our little icon will be comment hyphen dots. No. I'm going to see if there's an alert one. Refresh. There's not. Okay. So straight up alert, they have nothing. They name it more appropriately, so you can get an exclamation mark, which is just exclamation, exclamation triangle, or exclamation circle. You see all the grayed ones out, those are pro only because I don't have my free box checked, so there you go. These are the ones that I can choose from. There's a lot more I could look for, but I want something within that kind of alert type of field. So I'm going to use the exclamation triangle. Exclamation triangle. If it doesn't work right, you probably misspelled exclamation. So there we go. And with the default spacing there, it almost perfectly lines up with this guy anyway. So I kind of like that. I might want to push this in a little bit more to get it to actually line up with that. But I have a feeling that if I change the size of this, that might change anyway. I should make this box no wrap as well, so I will do that. I don't actually have my buttons set like that. So div class equals btn group. Save that. And if you notice, what button group does is it makes it all one large button and then just puts vertical lines between the different ones. So it groups it together as a single button almost, I guess visually, with different selects within them. If you do, you can do button group justify, which means it'll take up the entire width of an area and evenly proportion the buttons. Because if you notice, because open has fewer characters, it's smaller than the others. The other thing you could do is just manually put in spaces on either side of that open, and that would increase the size. So where this has 6 characters, this has 7, but a couple of them are thinner ones, because you have to remember that L takes up a lot less space than any of the capital letters, for example, or even the O. So basically, if I put a space on either side of that open, it would make them all relatively the same size. So I may just do that. Yeah, they're probably not exact, but a lot closer to the same size now. And since it's a button group, it shouldn't break them apart. Yeah, see, it won't break them apart now if we scale down. Now if we wanted, we could make these two part of the same line, but I don't know that that necessarily matters if the arrow is with the buttons or with this set. So I'll just leave it like that. I'm fine with that. Okay, so now this box, notice you can also change the size of it. One thing I don't like is this horizontal resize. I like having the vertical resize, so if you need more space you can, but I don't like them being able to screw up that width. So what we do there is go to our CSS, just go up to the top here. You can put it anywhere. I'm going to put it under our H tags here, and text area, resize, vertical, and save that. Now if you refresh it and you try to resize it, you notice that you can't resize it horizontally. You can only resize it vertically. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is back in our text area box, I am going to give this a placeholder again. So it removed it from when it was an input, and I'm just going to give that a value of none. So placeholder is equal to double quotes, and inside the double quotes none with a capital N. And refresh this. So now I get none, and it's kind of grayed out and italicized. And if you notice, when you put the cursor over it and you start typing, it just goes away. But when it's empty, it says none in that background there. So that's what placeholder text is. If you're not familiar with it, we should have seen that when we were doing our forms. Same idea as this here. Okay. So the reason why we want that is because we don't have a button for this, if you notice that. That's because we don't actually need one. What we're going to do is just have it change on a on change event. So what we do is we go back up here to our JavaScripts, add a new line, js.equals to $, parenthesis, inside the parenthesis, double quotes, hashtag, and this is going to be our AA hyphen location hyphen text dot change parentheses semicolon. Inside the change, we do function parenthesis curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers, $, dot post parenthesis semicolon. Inside the parenthesis, double quotes, https highway45.ca/resources/admin-functions.php, comma, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers, check, double quotes, and in this location text, location hyphen text. Outside the curly bracers, comma, function, parentheses, inside the parentheses, data, outside the parentheses, curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, if, parentheses, inside the parentheses, data, outside curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, $, parentheses, inside the parentheses, double quotes, inside the double quotes, pound, AA hyphen location hyphen text, outside dot parent parentheses dot add class parentheses semicolon. Inside the add class, double quotes, has hyphen success, outside the double quotes but still in the parentheses, comma, function, parentheses, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers, set timeout, parenthesis, inside the parenthesis, $, parenthesis, inside the parenthesis, double quotes, inside the double quotes, pound, AA hyphen location hyphen text, outside the parenthesis, dot parent, close parenthesis, dot remove class, parenthesis, comma, inside the parenthesis, double quotes, inside the double quotes, has success. After the comma, we put 5,000. And save. Now we go to our admin functions. And we need to create a new case. So we go case, location hyphen text, colon, break, and in between, set db is equal to double quotes, semicolon, inside the double quotes, update switches, set val is equal to single quotes, inside the single quotes, double quotes, inside the double quotes, double dots, and inside the double dots is LT, $LT. After the single quote, space, where name is equal to single quotes, inside the single quotes, location hyphen text. New line, if parentheses MySQLi underscore query parentheses triple equals to false, inside the parentheses database comma $, set db, outside the last parenthesis, exit, space, else, curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, echo, single quotes, success, exit, save. Okay, now we need one more line. So still within here for the location text, but above our set db, we need to create that LT variable. So LT is set to filter input, parentheses, semicolon, inside the parentheses, input post, comma, LT, in single quotes, comma, filter callback, comma, square brackets, inside the square brackets, double quotes, options equals greater than, double quotes, inside the double quotes, data secure. Okay, so in this case we need another variable called LT, which should be our text. So going back to our admin page, we need a second one here. So the first thing we need is, before we call our post, so I'm going to break this down to a second line here. And in this one, I am going to go var space LT is equal to $, parentheses, inside the parentheses, double quote, pound, actually, no, not going to do that. I'm just going to go this dot val, close parentheses. And then after our check location text, comma, LT, semicolon, LT. Save that. I'm going to give it another new line. Because this is getting excruciatingly long and I want to give it a little bit of clarity. There we go. Save that, and now we're going to go test it. Okay, so refresh this, and I'm going to type test text and hit tab. And that did nothing. Because we didn't actually set the field yet. So going into our database again, insert, and our name, location text. And val is blank. Okay, so that it gave an error here simply because the blank value that I gave it isn't an integer, so it would want 0 for a default, so it just errored, but that still worked. So if we go to browse, you'll see that it still did it. It just changed that value to 0 by default. However, what we want to do is go in here and go to structure. We need to change what that value is because we don't want a Boolean value for our text location. We need that to be able to support a text string now. So what we're going to do is we're going to change our value. Okay, so all we do is we change type to text and save. Oh, and we get rid of the length requirement. So there we go. Now if we go back to browse, and we're just going to change this from 0 back to nothing. So just delete the 0 in there. And it'll save that, and we're good. So now we can go back into NetBeans, and what we want to do is we want to get what that value is and enter it into the field. So in our admin page, right here, we want to get what our value is there and put it in here. So with our PHP here, we're going to do something similar there. So where we already have the value, we go if s location text lt is equal to s location hyphen text $, space else lt is equal to nothing. And then in here we break out of our PHP and lt between the two text area tags and save that. So database name highway 45 DB, forgot the DB, so that was giving me an error. Refresh this, hit test, hit tab. Doesn't like this. So delete the comma function, parentheses, there. End parentheses there, semicolon, space, set timeout. We're going to put timeout on a new line. Just delete it. Else. Copy that. Paste it. Change add class to remove class. Save that. Refresh. Test. That changed to green. Okay. So now the only thing we need to do, so this works. So in our post, $.post, parentheses, inside the parentheses, quotations, our admin functions.php, curly bracers, or sorry, comma, curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, check, colon, in double quotes, location hyphen text, comma, lt colon lt, then a comma after the curly bracer, function, in parentheses, data, a set of curly bracers, and then if, in parentheses, data, curly bracers, $, parentheses, quotations, hashtag AA-location-text, .parent.add class has success, else, so basically if we get a response, give the parent class the has success, else remove the has success. So what we want to make sure is that if we leave it blank, then we basically get the same as fail even if the change is successful. So in our admin functions, because this can be set to empty and we'll still set it and we'll get a response that is positive. So what we want to do is in our else here, okay, so what we want to do here is basically where it says if MySQL query $highway 45 dB, make sure you put that dB in there, comma set dB is equal to false. So in here we put or, so the double bars, exclamation mark, $LT. So basically what it means is if LT is blank, then just exit as well, is what that will do. So the only time it's going to echo the success is if there's something in the LT and we successfully updated. So I'm going to refresh that now. So we got nothing in there. I'm going to write test, hit tab, changed it to green. I delete that, hit tab, changed it back to red. So on our location page, so what we need to do is create JavaScript, and we're going to do that between our PHP and our page content. So first, if parentheses $S location text parentheses JS dot equals single quotes semicolon inside the single quotes $, parentheses inside the parentheses, double quotes inside the double quotes, hashtag admin hyphen message outside the parentheses .html parentheses semicolon inside the parentheses, double quotes inside the double quotes, single quotes inside the single quotes, double dots inside the double dots, $S, square brackets, single quotes, location hyphen text, after the HTML dot parent dot show. And save that. And refresh. And now you see that we have our message test. close that, but if I refresh it, it still comes back test. If I go to our admin page and I delete that, hit tab, go to location, there's nothing. Go back to admin, type in test message, hit tab, go back to our location, test message. And we can close out location because we're done there. Close out register because we're done there. And in our admin page, following this guy down, we are going to first do a break. And then I'm going to do a H3 inside my H3. I'm going to go with menu settings. Now for our menu settings, we're going to have basically just two options. We're going to have an edit button where they can actually go in and edit each one of these items without having to go through the back end, or basically manually going to it through our web server host. And the other one is we're going to have an option to turn on and off the ordering. As it stands right now, they don't want to have online ordering because they're not quite set up for it. So we need to be able to disable that. We're still going to build the feature in, but we want to disable it until they're ready, and then they can just turn it on with a switch and it's ready to go. So this other part here will basically be able to hide or show. So we need a couple buttons for that. And because these buttons here were related, these ones are not, I'm not going to group them. Menu settings. Button. Orders. ID equals allow orders. Class is equal to btn hyphen LG and btn hyphen danger. Because by default, I'm going to have it off. Okay. Next. Button. Button. ID is equal to space ID is equal to edit menu. Class is equal to btn hyphen large btn hyphen warning edit menu. Going to my index page, and I'm going down to our menu items, and I am going to copy these guys. So for menu, I had that. Save that. And orders, I had the cash register icon. Paste, space, save. And then I'm going to need one of these guys. Copy, paste. I'm going to change location to menu, AA location text to AA menu text, LT to MT, and that's all I need to do there. And then I'm just going to tab that back out. I'm going to save that and see how that looks. So going back to our admin page. So it looks alright. However, these buttons I want to kind of shove over. And I forgot to give them that button admin class as well. So button danger btn hyphen admin btn warning btn hyphen admin, and then right after, actually I'm just going to put it in front of each one of these. Ampersands EMSP semicolon ampersands EMSP semicolon, and save and refresh that. So there we go. Orders edit menu. So now what we need to do is change some, or add some JavaScript to make these functional. So the first thing I'm going to do is work on that orders. So up here, JavaScript.equals $, parentheses, double quotes, pound, and our first button is allow orders. Dot click function, parentheses, curly bracers. Inside the curly bracers. And thinking about it now, I need to, or at least I want to, add an input. So I'm going to put it after my, no, I'm going to put it at the top. So after my div class menu settings, I'm going to create an input. And this input is going to have an ID equal to AO and a value equal to PHP value of allow orders. I'm going to remove this, single quotes, double dots, AO class. Now we just need to create those two variables. So we go to our PHP if s allow orders AO class is equal to has success and allow orders set to 1, else AO class is set to has danger and allow orders is set to 0. Save that. Go back up to our function and we go var AO is set to $, parenthesis, double quotes, pound, AO dot val and then $post parenthesis semicolon inside the parenthesis highway45.ca/resources/admin-functions.php, comma, curly bracers, check, colon, allow orders, comma, AO, colon, AO. Outside the curly bracer, comma, function, parenthesis, inside the parenthesis, data, outside the parenthesis, curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, if quotation or parentheses data curly bracers and AO value is equal to data. No, we don't even need to do the if data. So function data $, parentheses, double quotes, inside the double quotes, pound AO dot val, parentheses, semicolon, inside the val, data. new line after that one, and $JS dot equals to single quotes semicolon. Go back a line and add a dot, double quotes, backslash n, and our AA location text do the same. New lines. This one do the same. New line. Okay. So then in this one, $, parentheses, double quotes, hashtag AO dot change, semicolon, inside the parentheses, function, parentheses, curly bracers, inside the curly bracers, var AO is equal to $, parentheses, this dot val. Okay, so we get our var AO, and if AO, then $, parentheses, double quotes, hashtag allow hyphen orders dot remove class parentheses dot add class parentheses semicolon, copy that after the first curly bracer there, go else, another set of curly bracers, and paste into the curly bracers, and in the first remove class, double quotes. So in this, if AO, so basically if the value is 1, then we want to remove the class has danger and add class has success. And in the other one, the opposite. So remove class has success and add class has danger. And save that. And one more thing, this AO val data, after data, we need to prompt a change. And we need to go into our database and we need to create a new row. So insert, allow hyphen orders. And for value, we're just going to put 0. Go it like that. Just going to hit browse. Back to our menu, refresh, and we can see the input field there and edit it, which is not something we actually want. Go back in here, and our input ID value, we need a type of hidden. Save that, refresh, and it's gone now. Our orders is showing up as white, so that's no good. because we have that as has success and has danger, which is my fault, we want BTN success or BTN danger. Sorry, that is entirely my fault. We need to go back up, and in here, everywhere where we have add class has danger, that needs to be BTN. BTN danger, BTN success. BTN success, BTN danger. That was my fault. Okay. Refresh that now. There we go. So now that is red. If we click on it, it will do nothing because we don't have the associated PHP set up for it in our admin functions. But it is showing up red, which is good because that's what it should be doing. So now we need to create a new case here. I'm just going to copy the location text. Paste that, and this is going to be allow orders. This is AO. And I'm going to change this to filter validate Boolean. Set a value to AO, where name is equal to allow orders. Okay, and change the LT, just remove, so it ends at false, exit, echo, and then instead of success, we're going to put AO. So this will either echo out 0 or 1. After this, we need to then figure out if this is supposed to change to 1 or 0. So if AO is set to 0, else AO is set to 1. So basically what we're doing is we're taking this, and if it's a 1, we're changing it to a 0, and if it's a 0 or false or blank or whatever it not 1, then make it 1. And then put that value there, and also echo it out, and this way it ensures that it is either 0 or 1. Admin page. So if AO is equal to 1, using the triple equals, double equals, refresh, and now it's switching back and forth. Zero, 1, 0, 1. Okay, so now what we need to do is set this to actually affect our menu. So going into our menu, okay, so up at the top here, we are going to go if parentheses $S square brackets single quotes allow hyphen orders curly bracers exclamation point in front of the $. So if allow orders is not set, then we're simply going to hide them. So $, parentheses, double quotes, pound, and the part is class order. So not pound or hashtag, it's a dot order dot hide. And that should all be within single quotes, semicolon behind it, and in front of it $JS dot equals. So $JS dot equals single quotes semicolon inside the single quotes $, parentheses, double quotes, dot order after the parentheses, dot hide, parentheses, semicolon. Save that. So now orders are set to off, location, menu, and now when I go to menu, you notice there's prices and items, but there's no line to order. If I go back to my admin and I click on the orders button, it lights up green. I go back to my menu, and now I have the plus minus to make my orders. So there we go. That works. Edit menu. So now what we're going to do for this one is this is actually just going to be a link to a new page. So going to our admin page, add another JavaScript line. JavaScript dot equals dot dot semicolon dot slash n, which reminds me, I'm just going to quickly save that and go back to our menu page, and in here where I have this JavaScript order hide, I'm going to add a dot new line to that, because I have no idea where that's going to end up, and I like to try to keep my code neat, as I said before. Okay, let's go back to our admin page now, and $, parentheses, double quotes, hashtag, and edit menu, edit hyphen menu dot click function window dot location dot href is equal to https :/ highway45.ca / breakout with single quotes and dots, and then after the last slash last quote you can put another /, going back in between our dots, and $lang, so our language, which because we're still under our core page, we should have the language variable set for us. /admin/menu/ /. And we'll get into this a little bit later, but if you remember when we created our htaccess page, we had our 3 different variables. We had our language, we had our admin page, or our page, and then we had an item after the page. So this falls into that item category. Okay, and save that. That's all we're doing with that one. It's going to take us to a new page, which we don't actually have yet, but if we hit refresh and click on it, yeah, it'll just add that to the top there and bring us back to this page, and honestly nothing will have changed because we haven't set what that will do yet. But that will be in another video. And now we want to set our menu alert text the same as we did our location alert text. So that is very simple. Basically, we just copy our AA location text and paste it and rename everything from location to menu. Save that. Go to our admin functions page. Copy the location text one. Paste that. Call it menu text. Our LT variable becomes our MT variable. Set value to MT, where name is equal to menu text. Change that to MT. Save that. Go back to our admin. Just make sure, yeah, LT is set to MT. And this is changed to MT as well. Save that. Okay, so we're back into our databases, back into switches. And you can see our allow orders is 1. And yeah, we're just going to add another column here. So insert. And this one's going to be menu text. And values just left blank. Okay, that's all we need there. I'm going to close that Font Awesome page because I don't need it anymore. Going back to our NetBeans. And we can go to our location page actually. And our location text line, just going to copy that and then close that page, go to our menu page, and right below the panel body we have that. So right above our page content, I'm going to add that line. And this one actually doesn't have a line break either, so I'm going to add a line break there. And then for these, location, I'm changing to menu. into our location, just changing that to include the new line. Save that. Close that. And go back to here. Refresh this administration page. And in here, I'm just going to write test. Tab went green. And go into our menu. And our menu test is there. So there we go. That section is done. So our menu is done now. Oh, accept that. Go back down. Oh, not in our menu, in our admin page. Sorry, MT. Do not have anything fetching what our MT is. Our location text here, we need this line copied. Copy, paste, and this is menu, and this is MT, and this is MT. Okay, refresh that. And now we have that test. We can delete that. However, there is one thing I noticed here. So if we do have something there, test tab shows green and it shows up here, right? We go back to our admin page and it's not green anymore. So I want to make that actually stay green if something is in there. And how I do that is within this part. So if it is, then we want to add the class has success. Call it MTHS is equal to has success. And then MTHS is equal to blank. And we'll do the same thing here. So LTHS is equal to blank. And LTHS is equal to has success. I'm going to put a space in front of the has success in that quote. And then the div form group LG input group, right after the end of that input group, single quotes, dots, MTHS, and the same thing in this one. So after the input group, before the double quote, single quotes, dots, LTHS. And I'm going to save that. So basically what this means is where it adds the text, it's also going to add the has success class to the parent element, which is what we would do in JavaScript normally. So there is no text there. So if I write test and I go and I check it in our menu and it shows up there and I go back to our admin page, notice it still has the success markers there. And that is what we wanted. I'm going to turn off our orders for now. Keep that nice and neat. Okay, so our menu page is now complete. Our location page is complete. Our orders we haven't worked on yet. The last thing we need to do is our home page. So with our home page, we are simply going to, well, one thing we need to do is we need to change the default line height. So that is our H4, I believe. So let's just close our menu page. We need to open up our home page. So yeah, that's an H4 class. So we need to check out our H4 class and see what the line height is, because that's overlapping and we don't want that. So in our CSS, go up to H4. Yeah, we have font sizes, but we don't have line heights for any of these. So that's not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and create a line height for each of these. Line height of 1.5 EM. So you might have seen EM used before. I used it for some of the spacing, the ampersands, EMSP. EM is a relative term, so where PX stands for pixels, and that's literally how many pixels on the screen it takes up. Percentage is pretty obvious. We used VW for viewable width. EM is a relative size, so when we're talking about line height, EM means 1.5 times whatever is set as the font size. So this is relative to this, and it would be 1 is equal to whatever this is equal to, and ratioed from that. So 1.5 EM is literally 1.5 times whatever this is. So if you're used to a word processor, that's the essential 1.5 line spacing. And save that. Now when I refresh, that's a lot better spaced out. Okay, so after a lot of tinkering, and I mean a lot, I figured out how to set it so that our menu alert text will automatically translate into multiple languages, store in those multiple languages, and be able to be called based on the language. So what I mean from that, test message. Okay, turns green. It does take 1 second to process. That is part and parcel. So that little kind of wait before the pop was one full second. However, now when we go to our menu, we have our test message there. However, if I go up here and I change it to a different language, notice that our message is automatically translated for us. Now, I found that this was rather essential because although the way that we normally translate our page through the definitions and constants, that works for anything that is going to be relatively static, so not changed often. But the test message is basically designed so that anybody with staff access can go in there and change the message on a regular basis. However, you don't want that to be in one static language. And that's the way we had it set up at first. So what I did was I went in and set it so that basically once we type it in, it connects to Google Translate's API, which I will show you how to set up. and translates it, stores each version, so the English, the French, each language in an array, stores that in the database, and then when we come out, it chooses which language. So first, the code that we needed to do in the menu page is this. So before we just had this JavaScript line without this piece here, and what we had to do was add this second part to it. So S menu text, and then another set of square brackets, $TL, and then if S menu text, so if it exists, switch the language, and based on the language, give it a numeric value. Default being English would be 0, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and then show that one. So basically, it only shows the one for your language. Okay, and going into our core page, and we had to add this line here. So basically, after we pull up our our switch name and apply a value, if substring switch name, comma, -5 is equal to single quotes hyphen text. So basically, if the last 5 characters of switch name is equal to hyphen text, then S switch name is equal to JSON underscore decode parenthesis HTML underscore entity underscore decode parenthesis switch val. So what that does is it takes our switch value and it decodes the HTML entities, which restores basically the quotations in it, and then that allows us to then decode the JSON file, which basically takes our string and converts it into an array for us, which is then what we use, which is why we number it 0 through 5 for each of the languages. And then going to our admin page, we can go to our admin functions. The only difference here is that I just mainstreamed this, so the for all of them, the input post will be text and the value is text. So it just makes them all relatively the exact same except the case, really. And then in our admin page, so at the bottom, if you notice, the text area for our location text just has this text area. So the difference is we changed it from empty to empty square brackets the number 0. So that's our English. And then we added these hidden input fields. So input type equals hidden, ID is MT-FR. So here we will be going LT-FR, and then DEUKNZH. ZH is the Chinese one. And then value equals, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is it for that part. Then our menu text here is pretty much the exact same. We didn't have to change anything there. Going up, this one here is what our location text is. So this is what it used to look like before, and this is what we had to do in order to make this work. We had to create a new JavaScript that's function space translate parentheses and then TL comma target comma text. So we're creating a translate function that has three input variables, TL, target, and text. Then in curly bracers, var TL1 is equal to TL if, in parenthesis, TL is equal to, in double quotes, ZH, curly bracers, TL1 is equal to, in double quotes, ZH hyphen TW. The reason for this is because Chinese in Google Translate is labeled as ZH hyphen TW. However, we needed to shorten that because hyphens aren't allowed for variable names in JavaScript, so that was causing some issues. So it had to be done. Next line, $.post, so we're making a post request. In parenthesis, double quotes, https://translation.googleapi.com/language/translate/v2 outside the quotations, comma, and then I just broke this with PHP so that it appears to be on the same line, but for clarity purposes I could bring it down. So then in curly bracers, source colon in double quotes en, so that's our source language, comma target colon TL, so that is our target language, so the language we want to convert it to, comma key colon double quotes, inside the double quotes, single quotes, inside the single quotes, double dots, inside the double dots, $Google, capital A, capital P, capital I. So this Google API variable we set, so you have to go to Google and get an API key. So if you go to console.developers.google.com, click on the dashboard, you need to add the Cloud Transition API. So click on the Enable APIs and Services and look for Cloud Translation API and install that. Then you need to go to Credentials and you need to create credentials and then create a credential. Doesn't matter what name you give it, that's just for tracking, but make sure that either it has no restrictions or restrictions are set to Cloud Translation API, but it needs to include that, and then it will give you a key. You need to copy that key and then go into our secure folder on the server, edit the key.php file, and do that $Google lowercase API uppercase equals single quotes semicolon, and in the single quotes paste that API key from there. That will allow you to use the Google services. Now it is not free, however it's free-ish. They give you a certain number of translations you can do per month for free. If you go over, then they charge you. So yeah, it's free-ish. If you're using it a lot, it'll probably end up costing you. The way we've done this, it shouldn't end up costing you anything at all. if anything, it cost me money because I did it about 1,000 times testing it. But even then, I probably in the clear. So anyway, going back to our script. So that's our key, comma, Q, colon, text. So this is the text part here coming in. So that's what we're actually going to translate. Okay, then end the curly bracers, comma, function in the function data, in the parenthesis data, then curly bracers, TT for translated text is equal to data.translations, square brackets, 0 inside the square brackets, dot translated text. Text has a capital T at the beginning, so it's camel caps, semicolon. That in itself took me a long time to figure out how to pull that out of the API. Space, $, in parentheses, target. So that's where we're getting that target value. Dot val, parentheses again, TT, semicolon, and then the closing off this function, and then this parenthesis is from there, and semicolon. And then we have our end curly bracer from here, from the function, and then a new line and end the PHP. Okay, so that basically creates a function that allows us to translate text based on 3 input variables. So those input variables are the language, the target, so which field we're going to store this in, and text. So then we have to figure out what we're translating. So then the second function we need to create is, so this translate function will work for all of our different fields. So we only need that one to do both of these, the location alert and the menu alert. This next function, we will have to create one for each. So there will be one for menu, and we'll have to create one for location and one for any of the other ones that we're doing. Home, for example. So function translate MT, so this is our menu text, close parenthesis, curly bracer, var TTEN, so basically var TT and then the 2-digit code for each of the languages is equal to, and then the English one is the only one that's really different. It's $, parentheses, the hashtag AA-menu-text.val. The rest are basically MT hyphen and then the 2-digit language. So we basically create a variable for each of these languages based on each of these IDs. So we create variables for each of those. Then we go var translation is equal to JSON, all caps, JSON, which is JavaScript object notation, in case you're wondering what that stands for. Dot stringify, parenthesis, square bracket, and then each of these variables that we added. TTEN, comma, TTFR, comma, TTDE, comma, TTUK, comma, TTZH. So what this does is it creates a JSON array of our different translations. So yeah, I guess we can kind of pause this and go back to our other script. So here, when we change the text, so we type something in and it changes, we create this change function for our text. So we pull up what the text is, and if the text exists, then we translate each one. So translate French, so our three variables, the language, 2 digits in double quotes, comma in double quotes, hashtag, always starting with that hashtag, MT-FR, so we want that the value of the French one, and then comma text, which is assigned here. Right, and then we do that, translate DE, translate UK, translate ZH. So we do it for each of the non-English languages. And then set timeout in parenthesis, and timeout has a capital T at the beginning. And then translate MT, so we're calling this function, comma 1000. So this is where that 1 second delay comes in. Basically, we can't set this function, so we can't do the rest of this stuff until these have had enough time to actually process. And because they're going to an external site, doing something and coming back, it takes a little bit. So I've set it for 1 second. I initially tried it for 1/10 of a second and it wasn't enough time. So I set it to a full second and that's enough time. It might not need that much, but I always like to rather be safe than sorry, so that's what I've set it to. Else, so if the text is blank, then just do a post to our admin functions, check menu text, but don't give it a value so that it automatically fails and is 0. So function data, if data, but that should be blank no matter what. Then add class has success, otherwise, which is what it should always do, remove class has success. So basically, if we remove that, it should clear out the database and mark it as regular again. So then going back to what this translate MT does, we create our translation variable, which is this encoded string. And then we do a post to our admin functions and we check our menu text. So same thing here, but the text is that translation string, and then that should succeed and go through. So that in a nutshell is what is required. So it's a lot of work, it's a little confusing. You don't need this line here. This was just my initial testing to get it to work. But putting all that in allows you to use Google Translate to manually do it. So how it works, like I said, it will translate it to each of the languages and then store it in a single variable, and then we call that variable, and based on which language, that's what it'll print out. This one will always print out the English one again, and if I delete it and hit tab, it just clears it out. And I'll have to go back and do it for the location one, and then we can do a home one as well. Okay, so going back into our admin page, I'm going to go and create all the things for the location that I did for the menu. And then while I'm doing this, I'll also copy and paste one for the homes page. Okay, so those are all done. I need one more of these for the home one. I'm just putting it in an extra div in case I want to add other things. But I don't specifically need it because probably not going to have anything else for the homepage. Okay, saving that. Going to our admin functions. So we have the menu text, we have the location text, and we'll do a home text. And I'm just going to put all these texts together. And now going here. And I need to create a home text. Pretty sure none of that has changed. We just need to copy this from our menu.php page. Save that, go to our home page. Should be home text. That'll be home text. And that's all the same, so just home text there, home text there is all we need to change. Save home, we can close that one. And we need location. And in location we already had this line, so we're replacing that line. Location right here. So I had this else and then I also had it up there. Delete that, save that, refresh. Refresh. No, still giving me an error message. Oh, because I got it in 2 spots. There we go. Okay, so we have home page settings, home alert text, location settings, location alert text, menu settings. So we might want to put little icons for these 3 if we're doing them everywhere else. Don't necessarily need them, but might be fun to have. there's a door open, so we might try door. Door open, door close. Sure. Okay, so find our buttons here. And just add I for icon. Class is equal to fast, large, fast space, hyphen large, dash fw, dash door open. And then I'm just going to add a space, non-breaking space after that. And then I'm just going to copy that whole thing and paste it into each of these. And then for the closed one, I'm going to change that to closed. I'm going to save that and go back and refresh and see what that looks like. I kind of like that. Okay, so we will go in and have it where you can edit menu. We'll also have one for clients, and we'll have stuff for orders, but we're not going to get to that until we finish the rest of the stuff, so we'll save that for kind of last. So that's it for this one. I will see you guys in the next video.